Hello, I'm Jake Boudreau, civic journalist at Tello Community Television in Ayrshire. This week, on The Record, we speak with Kendra Coombs, NDP MLA, about a number of issues. Family and friends of Cody Duane MacDonald, who has been missing since February, are trying to raise money to get some information about his disappearance. Provincial funding was recently announced to help combat homelessness. Local students did well at regional and provincial heritage fairs, and students at Ecole Beau-Port won some awards recently. Joining me today is Kendra Coombs, who's the MLA for Breton Centre-Whitney Pier. Thank you for joining me today, Kendra.
Thank you for having me.
According to Nova Scotia NDP, Auditor General Kim Adair called on the Houston government to immediately take action to set up the Child and Youth Advocate. The Auditor General's report found that the use of temporary emergency arrangements has risen dramatically from 36 to 138 in 5 years' time. The average length of stay in these arrangements is over 8 months. So my first question is how will a child and youth advocate help with these problems?
Well, the role of the child and youth advocate, from our standpoint, has always been to ensure and protect the rights of children and youth. So in that concept is when children are supposed to be in these temporary, like such as these temporary emergency placements, if they're only supposed to be there for say 30, it's 7 days or 30 days, whatever that time frame is that they're supposed to be in there, if they're continuously in there after that, that's when the child and youth advocate would step in and declare that this is going against their rights. This is an inappropriate accommodations for them to stay in. That would be the role of the advocate. That is the role of the advocate. The advocate is to ensure that all the rights of the youth in care or out of care are being upheld.
Now, the NDP noted that the Auditor General's report is scathing, and I guess in addition to the figures that they're showing, I guess how is the report scathing in your opinion?
I think it's scathing on the with regards to the government. A lot of in that report seems to be regarding social workers, and there are not enough social workers within DCS. Social workers are overworked. Their caseloads are too high, and that is a government problem. And the government needs to add more social workers into DCS to take the caseloads off of these social workers so that they have the ability to effectively do their job, and also stop the rapid burnout that is also happening there. So many social workers are burnt out. Some of them are on stress leaves because of how burnt out they are, and that's because they're overworked with too many cases. The other aspect of this is the prevention of children going into care and ensuring that the ability to help families. The parent aid program years ago used to be robust, and that parent aid program for parents who were struggling allowed them the ability to, while the kids were still in their home, learn the skills of parenting that they may not have. So that's the other aspect of that, is we need more resources into prevention, and that includes ensuring that parents have the financial support that they need. Many of the children in care are often in care due to issues that have come about due to poverty. And most of those kids oftentimes are on income assistance. So the government's own income assistance levels are not actually meeting the needs of families and children. So these are the ways that we can help prevent people from going into the system, as well as adding more social workers to the system to take over these heavy caseloads.
Now, the NDP noted in a recent press release that the Houston government tabled legislation in March to create an office for children and youth. Are there any indications that this government is willing to move on this?
Well, we have a minister of youth right now, and I don't know what that minister's role is or responsibilities. And that role was given to the minister when they were sworn in to government 2 years ago or more now. And yet I still don't know what the responsibility of that department is. And I can't find what the responsibility of that department is. So there's your, I guess that's your answer. Doesn't seem to be moving fast.
Your party issued a press release showing that the number of newborns referred to unattached newborn clinics is on the rise, with nearly 16% of registered births in Nova Scotia last year referred to a unattached newborn clinic. These clinics care for babies who do not have a family doctor or primary care provider. According to a Freedom of Information request by the NDP caucus, 941 of the 5,922 babies born in 2023 were referred to these clinics. Since UNCs were launched in December 2022, the number of new referrals has steadily increased each quarter. CJ Blennerhassett, the vice president of the Association of Nova Scotia Midwives, said when newborns don't have an attachment to a primary care provider, there are lower rates of routine vaccinations and increasing emergency room use or use of acute care facilities. Blennerhassett said midwives can be part of the solution, and increasing midwifery services can help fill the gaps by using midwives in the provision of postpartum care. Do you agree with that assertion? And it is more of a stopgap measure in the time being than a long-term solution using midwives?
Well, midwifery has has had a long history of being important to those who are giving birth and after birth. They have a great role to play. And we know that within midwifery, it takes a lot of burden off of primary care, doctors. If the pregnancy is not an at-risk pregnancy or is not a complicated pregnancy, they can take a lot of the burden, as well as children after, and making sure that babies are taken care of afterwards when they're unattached. I think absolutely they have a role to play here.
The Nova Scotia.
I just to add that, but I also think it's, you know, it's a shame, and that we have that unborn children have to be put on a registry before they're even born in order to get attached to primary care.
The Nova Scotia Accessibility Act recognizes accessibility as a human right and set a goal for making the province fully accessible by 2030. According to Statistics Canada, 38% of people aged 15 or older in Nova Scotia have at least one disability. The NDP maintains that the Progressive Conservatives have failed to provide meaningful communication about their progress on the Nova Scotia Accessibility Act, and said that the government admitted that they would not meet the legislative deadline despite supporting the act when it was passed with all party support in 2017. Is there any indication that the government is going to move on the Nova Scotia Accessibility Act?
One would hope so. But in order to move on it, you've got to make it a priority, and you have to be working on it every day, and understanding what accessibility means. Continuously we're putting grants out online, but there are many people who are not able to get the accessibility that they need online. I have someone who contacted my office who has a disability, who could not get a document offline, like couldn't get it online, and it was an accessibility issue here. Accessibility means including programming and documents in Braille. It includes for those who are hard of hearing. It includes those who have mobility issues. There's a lot to do, and government needs to start moving quickly on it. And if that, and that, you know, however they need to do that, but they need to show that they're willing to do it by putting the resources into it, because it's just, it's more than making a door, making someone, being able for someone to go through a door. It's being able to read documents in Braille. It's being able, you know, we don't have, you know, you'd have to call up and get them rather than that just being a normal thing that comes to you. So we just need to move, the government needs to be able to move faster and start putting these priorities in order to say, in order to meet those standards, because we're hearing this a lot with this government. We're not going to be able to meet the deadlines. It's constantly, we're hearing that. And the only way you're not able to really meet all these, you're constantly missing the deadlines, is because you're not, to me, in my opinion, you're not putting the resources into these programs to meet those deadlines.
A report by the Energy Poverty Task Force indicates that Nova Scotia has one of the highest rates of energy poverty in Canada. Energy poverty is defined as spending 6% or more of a household's income on energy. According to the report, nearly half of Nova Scotia households are spending more than they can afford on power. What would an NDP program to address high energy costs look like? Would it include ideas like a power bill discount for low-income households, things like that?
Yes, and one of the things that we've looked at is in legislation of having a system for those that have low income, for say for power rates, and getting people, because the one thing you want to do for energy poverty is to get as many people off of oil, right? That is kind of the goal, to get people off oil. And so you put the money into that system of getting people off oil. And then the other part of that is for power rates. And that is the ability for those who are low income to have a system within Nova Scotia Power that would allow for people to be able to afford it. And that it's a system based on income thresholds and power rates.
Is it frustrating when your party's amendment to the Energy Reform Act requiring the creation of a program to address rate affordability for customers was voted down by the government and did not pass?
Absolutely, it's frustrating. It's something that's it's something that many have called for, many advocates have called for. And so when government is refusing to help Nova Scotians be able to afford their power bills, it's extremely frustrating.
Now, the NDP tabled a bill in 2022 to hold Nova Scotia Power accountable for the service they provide by tying their profits to objectives like reducing energy poverty, lowering power bills, and decarbonization. How effective would such legislation be in fighting energy poverty?
I think it would be extremely effective in that it's holding Nova Scotia Power to account. Because right now there is nothing that holds them to account. Their stakeholders are not the ratepayers. Their stakeholders are those who invested in their company. And by putting measures in place that they have goals that they have to meet, puts them back and it makes them more accountable to the ratepayers here in Nova Scotia.
Noting the need to keep people housed, the NDP is calling on the Houston government to change the requirements for the rent supplement program back to 30% from the 50% level they changed it to last year, and to create a renter's tax credit. The NDP also wants real rent control, stronger renter protections, and tenancy enforcement. Will that help combat homelessness in rural areas of the province outside of the Halifax Regional Municipality as well? Absolutely.
In Cape Breton, We have so many people who used to would have prior to last year, the province changing the threshold for the rent supplement from 30 to 50 has made it harder for people to actually qualify. And there's so many people here from Port Hawkesbury to industrial Cape Breton who have found themselves unable to afford the rents and unable to access the rent supplement program because of this change from 30% to 50%. It is creating a thing that is creating a situation that's unsustainable for people. Right now, according to CMHC, the numbers don't make sense from what I'm seeing from CMHC of how much rent costs here in these areas, especially including Sydney. They don't make sense to what I'm seeing online. I'm seeing from the lowest being 980, I think it was the last time I checked, which was of 3 weeks ago, to $2,000 a month in rent in the private market. That is unattainable for so many people. And that is in an area that is, is a mix, but that's across Cape Breton. We're seeing this affordability issue for housing. So changing that rent supplement means a lot. So if we went back to 30%, there's so many more people that would be able to get the rent supplement. The other problem that we face here in the rural area is the lack of public housing. And the government, there are 300, I think, that they announced province-wide is not going to be enough public housing. We need more public housing. And we need it at a faster rate than what it's coming, so people can be able to afford to live here, and also for those who can't afford the private market to be able to get into public housing. But that rent supplement is a big issue in my office.
Mm-hmm. Will the fixed term lease loophole hurt landlords, and if so, why or why not?
The fixed term, closing that loophole?
Yes.
I mean, when we talk about landlords, we kind of have to talk about them in different categories. When most of the ones that are using those fixed term leases and using them in a way that can be very harmful are the big landlords. They're not the small landlords who own a few properties. These are the ones who are using this and abusing it have mostly been the big landlords. And so I don't see it harming them in the sense that it's going to hurt their financial bottom line. And because those are the ones who are abusing them. The smaller, a majority of the small landlords are not abusing the loopholes in the Tenancy Act. They're not the ones doing that. It seems to be the big landlords many of the big landlords for the most part.
Now, noting the need for tax credits for renters to offset their bills as rents continue to rise, the NDP said a third of renters are spending over 30% of their incomes on rent. Would this program work the same and have the same effects as what's taking place in British Columbia and Manitoba and provinces like that?
I think that's what we're going to be modeling this off of. It is what we're seeing happening, and the fact that a lot of renters are paying a lot of money and they need some support. And so if we can do that with a rent tax credit and have some of that rent returned back to them, it's more money in their pockets that they're able to actually use.
Now, although Nova Scotia's housing needs assessment estimates the province will need 71,600 new housing units by 2027, some critics are claiming that building more housing might not result in lower rents. How do you respond to this?
I've heard this. I don't buy it. um, I, we are in a situation here where we have more and more people who are about to be homeless. More and more people are becoming homeless. We have had, under this government, we have seen an extraordinary amount of people become homeless. Halifax's AHAMS was 400 prior to this government. It's now I think over 1,000 and some people who are homeless. And so we need to start dealing with this. We need to put more housing in the system. It's crucial. We need to stop people from becoming homeless. And for those who are homeless, we need to get them into sustainable housing. Safe, affordable, accessible housing. This is what we need. And ensure that the housing that's being built is going to be affordable housing.
Will an expansion of the down payment assistance program ensure more people are easily able to transition into home ownership? And would there need to be other programs or factors in the economy that would need to be realized to make this a difference?
So in order to ensure that people are housed, we need to be able to look at all types of housing, from renting to ownership. And so we do need to make it more easily available for people to become homeowners, who want to become homeowners, whose desires to become a homeowner, because it is hard right now in that market to become a homeowner, especially for the first time. And so we need to be able to make that accessible to people to be able to do it. And because the other thing is, if some people are able to get access in financial situations to be able to get into get their own homes, that means there is rental units freed up for people to be able to rent as well. So we need to look at every tool in the toolbox and open that box and see what's inside and use them all that we have at our fingertips.
On the healthcare front, your party recently stated that the number of Nova Scotians without a primary care provider continues to climb, with 16% of the population on the Need a Family Practice registry. In the last year, the Houston government has only managed to add 10 net new family doctors, the worst year yet under the current government, the NDP noted. Your party's calling on the Houston government to expand collaborative care, making sure patients are attached to a clinic where they can access healthcare from a doctor, nurse practitioner, or other primary care providers. While stating that virtual care may have its place, your leader, Claudia Kendra, asserted it's not a replacement for a family doctor clinic. It's part of a primary team that knows the patient and their medical history. The NDP's health critic, Susan LeBlanc, said such places keep track of the health of Nova Scotians, such as when they need to refill their prescriptions, monitor their health conditions, or get a checkup. Are these numbers proof that not only has the current government not fixed healthcare, but that the system is actually getting worse?
I think the numbers speak for themselves that yes, the system has gotten worse. This government is not able to retain doctors. That is shown in their retention numbers and their recruitment numbers and their net numbers. They like to use, I think, their gross numbers, but they can't keep the net, like how many we've actually netted compared to what we needed. And health homes are the one place that we can ensure, and primary care clinics are the places that we can ensure that people are attached. And that is for health reasons. It is important that someone is not constantly going to doctor after doctor or health home after health home, but that their medical file is in a spot in a family of doctors and practitioners who know this patient. It's incredibly important, but and as the NDP, we're the ones who really began the collaborative care system in here in Nova Scotia. But yes, I would say that this government has failed in healthcare.
Well, that's all from me, Kendra, and I'd like to thank you for once again agreeing to do an interview with me and taking time to answer these questions on these important topics for Nova Scotians and viewers in our area.
Well, thank you for having me. I would love to talk to you a little bit more, but I got to go to my next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The family of Cody Duane MacDonald has set up a GoFundMe page, and money has been offered by friends and family to get information about his disappearance. MacDonald's cousin Jody Scott started the GoFundMe in mid-May. On the page, Scott said people have come forward to donate money, and the family thought this would be the best way to collect money to offer a reward to get information to help them bring MacDonald home. If the reward is not claimed, Scott said that all the funds donated will be used to support MacDonald's family and his daughter. Richmond District RCMP received a report that MacDonald was last seen on February 29th at around 2 p.m. in Grand Anse. The RCMP said MacDonald was at a local gas station, then he was at a home on Campbell Road in Grand Anse. Anyone with information on MacDonald's whereabouts can contact St. Peter's District RCMP or Nova Scotia Crime Stoppers. The provincial government is hoping diversion funding will provide support for Nova Scotians at risk of or experiencing homelessness. In a press release issued earlier this month, the Department of Community Services announced additional funding to help people with overdue power bills, rental arrears, and other barriers to housing. This support will be provided to 14 community-based organizations, including the YMCA of Breton in Port Hawkesbury. Community Services Minister Brendan Maguire said Nova Scotians are facing real challenges when it comes to affordability. According to the provincial government, providers will receive a total of $500,000 to be used for direct, one-time financial support with costs that create barriers to finding or maintaining housing. In addition to the one-time funding, people will be connected to other available supports and services, such as housing support workers. Among the students who attended the Provincial Heritage Fair on June 6th and 7th at St. Mary's University were Rihanna Wood and Ellie Cluett, grade 5 students at Tamarack Education Centre, who did their project on Highland dancing. Ruby Luciano, a grade 5 Tamarack Education Centre, talked about her great-grandmother Hilda's journey to Canada. Luciano also won in the veteran category at the Strait Regional Heritage Fair, which was held virtually on May 30th. First and second place winners included grade 4 student Olivia Stevens of Tamarack Education Centre, who delved into the Halifax explosion. The grade 5 winners were Rihanna Wood and Ellie Cluett. In second place in the grade 4 category were Gavin Kirsten and Juliana Gruchinski of Tamarack Education Centre on dairy farming. The Literacy Award went to grade 4 Tamarack Education students Kennedy Harb and Bruno Dombrowski for their project Ian Boothby and Nina Matsumoto. Grade 11 Ecole Beau-Port students Alexis Sampson and Claire Mumbriquet are among the 2024 Conseil Scolaire Acadien Provincial recipients of the Lieutenant Governor Medal. They received the honor late last month from Almadam native and Nova Scotia Lieutenant Governor Arthur J. LeBlanc during a ceremony in Halifax. Ecole Beau-Port won the School Sport Nova Scotia Division III Boys Slow Pitch Championship on June 8th in Lockport. Thank you for watching. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about on The Record.